bet.
I call the Capital Improvements and City Development meeting to order at 5 o'clock. I'd love to start on time. To review with you, welcome Barry and Bill. To review with you, the committee, which is myself, Councilor Denley is the vice chair, and Councilor Thibodeau is the member. This year, we're calling all departments in front of the council because we have two freshman councilors who really wanted to have a in-depth look and view at each and every department. Councilor Parika apologizes, she'll be here a little bit later, but she had an obligation that's going to cause her to be a little tardy. And what we're doing is we're starting on page 24 of the Capital Improvements book, and for those of you at home, this is online, so you can go online, it's a PDF file, find page 24, and it'll say at the top, Department of Budget and Administration. And so on each item, if you would just flesh out what's not said, there's always more to be said, so whatever's not in the book that you would like to contribute to the councils, and then we'll ask if there's questions, and if none, then we'll just move on to the next segment, bit by bit.
Sure, as you can see in the budget admin section on page 24, all three items are more or less technical items, and so I'll turn that over to my learned colleague here, Bill Lennox.
Yeah, the first one for the replace computers at government center, I'm trying to get away from the trickle down that we've been doing over the last 10 years or so, where we'll replace some computers with newer ones, and the ones that we're replacing go somewhere else. The technology is just moving a lot faster than that, so I'm trying to get it so, the budget that I get for computers is small, $5,000–6,000. That might get me 10 computers if I'm lucky. I can't spend it all on computers, so it's, trying to get this in place so we can start doing it a little different than we have been doing it.
So Bill, in the area that you control, how many computers do you think are under your control? Just a rough guess.
250 probably. Yeah.
And they're all running Windows?
Yes. Yeah.
So they're all IBMs running Windows, they're all running Windows 7, I would guess?
Yes, 98% are on Windows 7.
Because you had to get out of XP
Yeah.
as was discontinued. And do any of those units have a uninterruptible power supply?
No, the only thing that has uninterruptible power supply are the servers.
Service.
Yeah.
Because during the last storm, I think it was Nemo, 2 years ago, Barry?
Yep.
We talked about whether or not it would be a wise thing to have uninterruptible power supplies on more computers so that data wasn't lost or critical systems didn't go down, like the police department.
Yeah, well, in most cases for the personal computer, they go home at night, they shut the computer down.
Yep.
We have a thunderstorm that's coming in, I'll call up and say, shut it down, only for that reason. It might be down for 10 minutes, but it's just a precautionary thing. Instead of $395 or maybe a little less for a personal UPS, but still, I think for every workstation, it's not feasible, it's not worth it.
Okay, good. That's the only note that I had on this item. Are there any other questions? Councilor Churchill.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
Does every computer in the city talk to City Hall? Can they?
Yes.
Okay. I know when I left, most of what we did was on Munis for payroll and so forth, but
Right, and so.
it's gotten better since then, right?
Yeah, they have, they separate out the fire. The fire talks to the server here, and they have
Right.
their own folders and files that they're able to see. Cell station, all the stations now are able to talk to City Hall.
Does management, Barry, think that's not much money for the computers? Would it be better to do all 250, or are we still, this is part of still trickle downing, right?
Well, not all computers need to be replaced. Mine, for example, works just fine. I think I'm on Windows 7, aren't I?
Yes.
It's operating very, very nicely, but I think that Bill wants to just keep rotating, getting these older computers offline, because sooner or later they're going to crash.
So that leads me to my last question. I promised on this. So it's never ending?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just gotta keep doing
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
So I'll follow up on his question. If it's never ending, why don't we make it a budget issue?
Well, it's both. It's both a budget issue and a capital improvement issue, because the $15,000 you see there is for a finite amount of computers, but as Bill mentioned, we do carry a line item in my budget for replacement of computers. We could always increase that. I mean, Bill can always replace more computers, but it comes down to a budgetary issue at that point.
If I'm,
Go ahead.
thank you,
Councilor
Mr. Chairman. Bill, so let's say, for instance, instead of the 30 new computers that you have budgeted now for the 15,000, if you were to get, say, another 10 computers, is that going to change the price of buying, say, 40 computers instead of the 30
No,
computers?
price
Price-
still, yeah.
So, unless you
still
get to a certain plateau of ordering, I don't know what it would be, 100 computers, or,
could-
then you could get a better price on it, but
Right,
unless
and
you go
I
that
do-
high.
Right, and this is still, you go out and look, I'm getting a couple $100 off of the price of that computer, so it's still a fairly decent price for a computer.
So Barry, my question is, if Bill had a budget of $10,000 instead of $5,000 the past 2 years, he wouldn't be asking for this $15,000 because he would have been able to put more newer computers into place. If we give him the $15,000 and recommend to the mayor that the budget be changed from $5,000 to $10,000, we could not expect to see this item in the capital improvement plan again.
Well, I think that, as Bill said, he's responsible, he and Dan Lincoln are responsible for about 250 computers. And so on a annual basis, any number of those can be replaced. Some do need to replace, some don't need to be replaced, but should be replaced. So I think whatever you increase the budget by, Bill's gonna end up using to replace computers. I don't think there's any question about that. But I think, as he said, this is ongoing. This is always just trying to keep up with the technology.
And that's why I'm thinking that it should be a budget issue, Barry, because your job and my job, we're worthless without a computer. We just can't do it. And that's what's become, the computer has become such a critical tool. My feeling is that the city budget should be built so that there would not be an issue of anyone having to wait for a new computer.
I don't think anyone,
Yeah, I don't ever let it get to that point where anybody's waiting for a computer or is, getting complaints about my computer's running too slow. If your computer's running too slow, go take a look, see if it needs a memory,
Yep.
see if it needs defragging. It never gets to the point where it's a computer that should be thrown out the window. We
Yep.
never get to that.
Yep.
Years ago, we did. We haven't
Years
got to
ago, it was that way, but it's
Right.
not that way now, yeah. I know the change last year in the library was magnificent. Councilor Churchill.
I guess I lied. I'm sorry. Well, let's say, Barry or Bill, you don't get the money, because I think it should be more than a category 2. If it's something that's ongoing, and I kind of concur with the chairman, I mean, it's something you should do every year. If the very least, could we change that to urgent? Let's say you don't get the money, what are you going to do if you need to replace more than the 5,000 that's in your budget? Not to put you on the spot, Bill, but obviously, I think this is.
Well,
more
then
than
I'd have to request the mayor for.
And we'd have to have an
Right.
additional expense, which is, this is one, kind of what you're saying, I think there should be in every, if it can't be in the budget, it should be more than just category 2. It's something you need to do, the city runs on the computer system. And it isn't like, if you can't spend, you have to spend more than you've got, and we have to do it anyways.
Right, I don't disagree with you there, but last year's capital improvements, we had money that was left over.
Okay,
So the money that was left over, we requested the council to be able to purchase some computers with the money that was left over, that got approved. So I had computers that could replace some real dogs that were out there. This is to, all right, let's get another 30 computers out there, and we don't have to go scrambling, basically is what it is. We don't have to, the $5,000 or $6,000 that I have in my budget every year should be sufficient if I get this money to get more computers into.
my point, Bill, is to get this money, and as Barry knows better than anybody probably, I've only sat here a while, but I had come before this council before, and I noticed that if you looked at all the urgent requests, we can't even do all the urgent requests, and this isn't even urgent, but it's certainly something that should have a priority, is what I'm trying to get at.
I understand.
And number 2 shouldn't have to compete with urgent requests, when this is something that's an everyday product that we need to do. I was just wondering if there's a better way to do it, because I think you need to do this. It's not a big expense, and I'm sure the mayor would come to us if he didn't have the money, but I'd like to see it somewhere where it's easy to identify year after year after year. Just my opinion. 'Cause I do think it's important, and it's only a category two, and we got millions of dollars of urgents. You know you're not gonna be able to do all of those, but this is certainly important.
Right.
So somewhere in there is an answer that I can't seem to put my fingers on. You don't seem to think that you need to increase your budget more than $5,000 if you get this 15 to replenish 30 computers. Is that true? Am I
That's true, only
representing that
because
correctly?
I've been going along that way for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, with what I have my budget, we've been, you know, it's how we run the department.
I want to make sure that I'm not misunderstanding anything. Go ahead, Councilor Thewitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just by the date that's in here, we're looking at fiscal year 2016, which doesn't begin until July of this upcoming year. So,
July
am
of
I
this year,
wrong? Are we-
2015.
no, we're in 16
July
now.
1st, 2015.
so yeah, so Bill, if you want it now, or if you want, as it says in 2016 for the fiscal year, then we really should bump that up to an urgent, because we're already into the second month of the year, and we're gonna go, 4 more months
Right,
before we're looking at a new budget.
2016.
So, I would support bumping this up to an urgent.
I think you'd make Mr. Lennox very happy if
Yep.
you bunch of, I don't think you'll get an argument here. Obviously, computers are very vital to the city, there's no question about it. But as Bill said, we don't have a situation where my computer crashes and, oh my God, everything stops. Bill's office with Dan Lincoln has supports computers that they can immediately replace. Would it be nice to have computers that we can bring back into the system and take an older one offline? Absolutely. And I think that's the balance that we're trying to strike here, is what's a good amount of computers to have available to just take another one offline and replace it.
Okay, I think we can move on. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Denny.
Well, I think one thing you might be hearing from the council is if you also wanted to budgetarily increase that line item, it sounds like we'd all be
Sure.
accommodating.
I heard that loud and clear.
So you can go at it from both angles.
Sure, yeah,
Right.
of course.
Right. And I think that concludes the comments pretty well. So we can move on.
And the utility billing software and hardware upgrade, that's at a priority 3 because I'm really not looking to get this done. Munis has told me that it's out there. When they first put it out there, they said you are going to have to do this. I'm not hearing that anymore. Our utility billing software works pretty damn good. I don't want to mess with it. So I leave this in the capital improvements project just in case Munis says, okay, 2 years from now, you're going to have to bump it up.
Does this bill involve a consultant to $35,000?
No, this is
That's
just,
just the license.
well, the license, they do the upgrade. So they would, over the internet, upgrade the software. But it's, sometimes when Munis upgrades software, the mix and match, it doesn't, it can turn into a nightmare. So I'm avoiding this until it absolutely has to be done.
Yeah, I see that an upgrade could also require the staff to learn new
Yes, new software. the
graphical
whole
user interface and how to get things done and
Yep.
slow them down.
Reports, the whole,
Yeah, yeah. So you're comfortable leaving it as a 3, just as a placeholder?
I am.
Yep, yep. Councilor Churchill, do you have a question?
I'm sorry, sir.
Oh, you had your hand.
I apologize.
And I'm used to you having a question. We can move on to the telephone system.
That I'm not real sure of. I'm not familiar with the telephone system, how to, what has to be done and what doesn't have to be done.
We have just upgraded the telephone system here at City Hall, and I think it's in conjunction with that as well. It's a citywide task, I think, ultimately, and as you can see, it's broken down into several different categories. As you mentioned, one of the storms, I think it was Nemo, where we were in jeopardy of losing the telephone system with a blackout, so you know, we've taken steps to correct that here at City Hall, and this is just an expansion of that new system.
What I remember of NEMO was the sudden disruption and sudden resumption of the power that was causing, in the chain of that event.
Right, and
that
like
was causing.
that's right, and so like the computers, the telephones are vital to the city insofar as us just conducting business, but also getting word out to the constituents out there and being able to respond in that fashion.
And are you familiar with how we got to this point, Barry? Did we look at different suppliers and take a look at the big picture of the entire city?
Yes.
Or are we just trying to patch what we have?
No, this is an overhaul, replacement, and upgrade of telephone system. This is not, that's broken, let's put a Band-Aid on that. You know, this is a comprehensive replacement of the telephone system.
Any other questions? Just a minor question that I remember thinking when we first started talking about telephone upgrade system. Was there any consideration to voice over internet protocol for the telephone system for the city to communicate with the computers, the 250 computers that we already have?
I'm not qualified to answer that, but I will say that my understanding is that in the offices, there's data lines that would allow for that. Is that correct?
Well, we have some of the phones in water, wastewater, City Hall, are IP phones.
Yep.
So it's a, you know, we have a mix and
So it's a
match.
mixed bag.
Yeah.
And it's all going to be able to be migrated into a bigger system or a newer system.
As far as I know, like I said, I'm not real familiar with the whole, so I really can't speak to it. I just know we do have VoIP phones and regular phones.
Well, I'm sure when we get to that point, Barry, $111,000, the council will get a lot more information.
Absolutely.
Right. So with that, I think we can let that one go. And I think that's the end of your segment. Unless there's something you want to bring up in front of the council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. What timing?
Hey, you know, you snooze, you lose.
At least you won.
Snoozing in the least bit.
That was just the nicest one I could think of.
That was a good one, though.
Welcome, Ms. Chakra.
Good evening.
Good evening. You have just one item in your, which we're all, those of us who have been here are quite familiar with. It seems to read exactly the same every year.
It does, except this year I updated all the numbers, so they're current numbers.
I appreciate that. One of the questions I had, and I guess you should go through what this record preservation and restoration is for Councilor Churchill and Councilor Perico, who were not here last year. They were here, but we didn't ask you to
You
be here.
didn't do it last
Right,
year.
right.
I wasn't here.
How long has this project been going on?
It's been part of the CIP since I started, but it's just now starting to do something, to actually get some stuff done. And that was one reason I went back and had all the numbers redone. Because the numbers that I had were from 2004. So I had them all redone. I've been doing a little bit at a time. I have $5,000 a year for the last couple of years in my budget. So I've been using that to do whatever I could do with $5,000. You'll notice that the total now is $126,186. I had the person who initially did the review and gave me all the numbers. I had come back and review everything, because since the initial one was done, we had the water in the basement and a lot of stuff came upstairs. And then I have a new vault down there, and I've filled the new vault. So I had him go in and look and see if there was anything in there now that was not in there before. So this is all updated. And then in January, I believe, the council voted on $15,000. So I will have part of this done with that $15,000 in March. I talked to them today, it'll take 2 months. So I'll have them back in May.
So, explain to me how you've been using the $5,000 each year. Some of these records go all the way back to the 18th century.
Correct,
You've already started preserving some of those documents, I assume.
yes. What I did was, with the $5,000, I would go and I would look at the original list. And I would look at the ones in the worst condition. And then I would call the company, which is now called Co-File. I would call them. He would come out and look and give me a new price. And say the price I had was $2,000. Well, now it's like $5,000 for that same book. And there were books. One year, you were here. One year I came out with the road book, and I said, that book alone was almost $10,000.
And so, for each of these books, you as the city clerk are required under your charge to maintain that book.
Correct.
Under state law.
Correct.
So what you're doing is you're having conservationists and preservationists restore that book to be a book that will stay a book going on in time.
Correct.
As a book, rather than microfishing it or taking pictures of it or otherwise recording it.
We do both, because that way, if anything ever happens in this building, God forbid, the microfiche is not in the building.
But for legal reasons, you need the book.
Yes. You'd be surprised how many people want to know what road was accepted in 1700.
Nothing
Yes.
would surprise me.
No. So yes, most of what I've done is back in the 17 and 1800s. Those were the worst books.
So for this fiscal year, you're looking for $52,495. But you might not need $15,000 of that we appropriated in January. Is that correct?
Well, so what I took to do with the 15,000 is actually in the 72. Because it's the worst of my records. Okay, so when you do birth records, they come in and there's the actual record itself, and then there's 2 or 3 other places where you put it, and then there's a big record book, and it's the record books right now that need the work. So the 15,000 is, let's see, birth records from 1856. These are books, not the actual records themselves. Those have already been done. 1856 to 1875, and 1876 to 1890, 91 to 1990, and we're going all the way up to 1969, and then I have a book that is birth, marriages, and deaths from 1844 to 1870. That's all that's being done with the 15,000. It actually comes to $15,259.
So the 15,000 is going to birth records. Birth
Yes.
record books.
Yes, vital records, yes.
Because you've isolated those as being very important records that need to be restored now.
Correct.
And with that $15,000, all the birth records all the birth record books that are in jeopardy will be restored and conserved.
Correct.
So you can move on to your other priorities, and
Yes.
that is fiscal year 17.
Yes. Well, yes. It's still 16 and 17.
Yeah, so what are we going to try to restore in fiscal year 16 with the $52,000?
Well, if it's easier, I have, Gary put it in as a total, I submitted it individually. So if you would like to have this individually as to,
I think we would like to have a copy of that,
Okay.
Betty, if you just make a copy and throw it in our boxes.
okay,
Yep. Councilor Churchill.
Well, thank you, sir. Going on with that train of thought, irregardless of the date of the items that are needed to be reserved, along with that list, is it possible for you to identify those things that you consider to be urgent? Things that should be done, no matter, despite the year, but because of their condition?
because of the condition,
That they,
yes,
regardless of what a year they fall in.
correct.
If under Mass General Law, we're required, or so I'm sure they don't come, do they come and check?
I've never seen one.
I've never seen one either. But in the
doesn't
history
say
of
that they
preserving
don't.
the city of Attleboro, which once was a town,
Yes.
history,
Yes.
it would be beneficial, I think, if you identified what is urgent and what the cost of those urgent items to go along with that list, and then we could decide and say, okay, you need to do these. Because if we wait another year, they're gonna be past urgent, they don't exist anymore, or something like that.
When the money is put into my budget, I would go down into my archives, and I would look at the ones that I do have a list of priorities. And I would get down and look, because the older the book, the more fading of the ink and stuff like that. Okay, so even when they restore and they clean and all that, they can't bring back ink that's faded. So the worst condition, it's not so much the outside of the book, it's what's on the inside.
So in addition to what's in your budget, Betty, if you could identify, according to what the chairman just asked, those items that are not covered by a budget, that are in this request, and if you can't get all of it, if you could get some of it, identify the ones that really need to be taken care of, and I would classify those as urgent.
I think this year they are all classified.
Well,
as
everything here is one.
Oh, it's a
So
one.
do you, here's what I would like to understand.
Okay.
Do you think that your urgent items total $52,495 minus the 15,000?
The urgent items, yes. On this list are town records back to 1735, so yes.
So you have $37,495 worth of urgent projects. And $15,000 worth of birth records. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for coming in, Betty, and for your ongoing efforts to try to get these done. I would concur, obviously, with the need to not only get these done. I remember one of the last things that I worked on with your predecessor, Sue Flood, was down in the archives looking for some records that we needed on something. And I've done a little bit of work with historical documents through the years. And I remember Sue saying that, we really shouldn't really be handling these ways, that these cannot, we really should not be making copies. We need to get these on microfilm. So I'm glad to see we are making some progress. But I have two questions for you. The first was, in terms of the Mass Historical Society, is there any sort of funding that might be available from them? I know they come out with usually about in the spring, they come out with some sort of a funding for communities, and I know there are certain things that can be used. Is that one that
They
can
have
be used?
what is called a Community Preservation Act.
Right,
That has to be accepted by the city.
right, but the
order to-
Mass Historical Society does have, usually in the spring of every year, there is some, I remember getting copies of this in the past, some sort of funding for local projects. I know there's a very strict parameters for them, but do you know if this is one of them?
I haven't ever seen them do
Okay,
city. I've seen them do library.
okay.
And
Because I know I've gotten things from them along that line because of something that I've been working on, which we weren't able to pursue. But I would think that if you were able to use it for that purpose, they would probably have copied the city clerk on it. So probably there's
it's a
nothing
good
from
thing to
them
look into,
necessarily.
but, yeah.
Okay, when I get
can
that card
find
this year, I'll take a
out.
close
Yes.
look at it, and I'll get back to you also on that. The second question I had was, once we get this done and all up to
Never
date,
done.
well, I mean, in terms of these
Yeah.
urgent ones being done, and we get, move from the 18th century, at least into the 20th century, then going forward, roughly how much money do you estimate that you would need, perhaps as a line item in your budget every year, in order to make sure we don't get into this situation going forward? Any idea? Or is that something you could work up potentially?
The budget that I have now
Yeah,
keeps us current with birth, death,
Okay.
and marriages. As far as putting them in protected paper, and they're put in books, and so nobody ever touches the original paper once it
Right.
comes in.
right, and that's what I was driving at with when I was working with Sue
Yes,
years ago.
and we have been doing that since, I think, 2005, I think we have paper, we have them back that far now.
Yeah.
In binders in the office, so that people aren't actually touching the paper.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Betty? Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I'll leave a copy.
Yes, that would be wonderful. I'll make sure that that becomes part of the minutes of the meeting, so that the next clerk can
Yes.
pick it up from there.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you, Betty.
Office of the Collector. Good evening.
Good evening.
Easy one, so it's just one thing on a page. This is really quite simple.
I don't usually come ask you for too much, hopefully.
Well, why don't you go through what this remittance processing system is?
What it is. A remittance processing system is a machine that reads the scan lines that are provided on each bill that we send out in the mail with the customer's check directly behind it, so that it can copy and save into your computer system both the stub and the check. And at the end of the process, it totals it all up, and we can do what we call lockbox processing, which takes all of the information that came off of that encoding on your stub and process it through the Munis system to apply to the customer's appropriate bill that it came in on. The checks are then put together into a pile and banded together with a printout at the end of it to go to the bank, so that the banks now process all checks immediately. They don't process them into customers' accounts. They process the checks to make sure it balances to what my machine has read, because handwriting is difficult. And they make sure we balance, and that's how we confirm our deposits. And then that, because they've scanned it on their side, their scan information goes directly to other banks for customers' accounts wherever the checks came from. But
So this-
basically, that's
this-
what it does for us.
So this system is basically for you to capture all of the imaging information for the city to store as a record of payment.
Correct. It gives us our records that we can research and look up for payments to see where the payments were applied to. It works for anything where you have a remittance advice, which is, I would say, probably 3/4 of our return mail comes in with a remittance advice.
So is this for quarterly real estate property tax, motor vehicle excise tax, and what else?
Personal property, real estate,
Personal
all
property and
bills.
for commercial properties.
Yep,
Commercial real estate properties, industrial real estate properties,
yes.
and what else? Is there any other billing?
Utility billing.
Utilities, yeah, water and wastewater?
Yep, real estate, personal property, motor vehicle excise, and we also are using it for the septic billing now. We have gone and put them on general billing, so those are processed that way.
Very good. My question I had was that your new system requires a $3,600 annual maintenance fee. Is there currently a annual maintenance fee in the system that we have now?
You'll have to speak up just a little louder because I didn't hear what you said.
The new system that you're asking to purchase is an annual maintenance system of $3,600, which will become a budget item in your budget.
Yes, that is for the maintenance contracts.
Yeah, so my question
We
is-
have a machine now, and
What's the fee now on the
the
current
fee
system?
now, I don't pay for the software maintenance contract or the hardware maintenance contract that comes out of Bill's budget. He takes care of contracts. I can only tell you what the estimate was from the stuff that I have on here, because I don't specifically get the bills to pay them,
So
so
are we
I
moving
can't
that
answer
into your
it.
budget?
Pardon me?
Are we moving that into your budget?
We are
or
not
it's-
moving it into budget.
It'll stay in Bill's budget?
It will stay in Bill's budget, but for the purposes of the new machine coming in, you have to include what the contract is going to be for that first year for each part of it, whether it's the software or the hardware. And then after that, it goes into Bill's budget.
Got it.
I don't know why they have it set up that way.
But that's the way it's set up?
Yes.
Counselor Churchill?
Chairman, the present system is how old?
We got it in 2007, and that the life expectancy of those machines is approximately 10 years. I have just received an email through Bill, he actually got it, that the iTrans system, it will no longer be supported at the end of 2015.
And how many times have you had to repair it?
I would have to say that it's tough to say to repair because some of
Nurse it
the,
along then, how about that?
you know, sometimes you have to, encourage it because it's paper going through a machine, and sometimes it's a camera issue, not being able to read things the same way. It gets ink on things, you have to clean it. Sometimes they have to come in and make minor adjustments. I think I can say that on one hand, where we've been shut down and not be able to use a machine in that long of a period of time for a couple of days till they come in and service it and get the parts that they need for it. On one hand, and since 2007 is not a lot.
When it goes down, the system sits and abates until it's fixed, so you can continue, because you can't do it with man-hours, you have to do it with a machine.
It depends on how backlogged we are and what we're working on. We still have a lot of manual posting. This is only posting for stuff that is encoded.
My last question, Debbie, is
Okay.
the new system is quicker, faster?
Yes, this is more updated, and it also will come with the new Check 21 service, so that all checks that get processed will be a download that we'd also send to the bank, as well as the download we would do to our software system to post the payments. So we'd no longer have to bring checks to the bank any longer, which would also save on, I don't pay fees to the bank, but I do earned income credits, which help to absorb other fees that we would have in case we have an overcharge.
Do you have a calculation of errors on the old system?
Errors?
Nothing's
There-
perfect.
Nothing is perfect, but it depends on the operator. It's operator error, because the machine is perfect.
Okay. That leads to my last part of the question, unless Heather was gonna ask. So, is this system easier?
Pardon me? Is it
this
easier?
Yes. Less error?
Less error. You have a lot less error, because at the end of the day, if it's not right, it lets you know it before you do anything with it.
Thank you.
The best way to go is remittance advice.
All right. Thank you.
So it does a daily closeout. Councilor Blair, you had a question?
Have you said that, excuse me, the machine was bought in '07,
Yes.
had a 10-year life expectancy, and they've been notified this year that they will no longer support
Yep.
it in
Yep, they
after
said that.
2015?
Yep, they said that their iTran 3000T support will end in 2015.
So support means parts, and
Right, so I mean, if the machine breaks down, I can't fix it.
you can't fix it. I hope the new machine isn't from the same company.
No, it is not.
Thank you.
It was the same question.
Okay. We're gonna probably recommend you change from a number one priority to urgent priority because of your maintenance
That would have
contract.
been my question, too.
If they're gonna discontinue your service
Yes.
in 2015, this
Yep.
is not a number one priority, this is an urgent priority.
Yes.
Because this machine, I'm guessing, does the work of 15 people.
Well, if we had 15 people. But
Exactly. My point is the same.
yeah, it saves a lot of work. Well, I did count to do keystrokes to get a payment into the machine. And just to get to the point to where you have to put the amount of dollars in, it's 15 keystrokes per person stub that you're working on.
Sure, it's a lot of time.
So that's a lot.
Because, Deb, you've got quarterly real estate bills, there's 40,000 bills.
Approximately.
You've got motor vehicle excise tax, there's 20,000 bills,
More, 35,000.
35,000 bills. You've got personal property taxes, 1,300 bills,
Yep.
but they're quarterly, so there's 5,000 personal property bills. We're approaching 100,000 bills coming out of your department each year. With the water and sewer, we're certainly there.
It's up there. You're sending out at least, if you're sending out 35,000 is only the first commitment for motor vehicle excise. There's commitments all year long. Then you have your tax bills that you send out on a quarterly basis, and that is 14,000 bills a quarter. Granted, you don't get all of them back because you have a lot that are paid by your mortgage house, and that's all done by lockbox payments. But you still have a lot of other bills that come in that people are still paying their taxes themselves. Then you have personal property, and that was approximately 900 bills this last quarter, so that's 4 times a year. Your tax bill, your utility bills, they go out 5 districts over a 3 months period of time. The biggest district is over 3,000. The smallest is almost a little over 2,000. So you're still talking the same amount of water bills as you are talking tax bills. So you're talking over 100,000 bills a year.
And $65 million of income. Right, that's a no-brainer. Council Cook.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming in and sharing this information. Just wanted to get clarification. I agree with the urgency of this, but did you say that with ITRAN 3000T not being supported at the end of 15, when did you get that email from Bill?
Bill got the email just within the last couple of weeks, and he told me he got it, and I got a copy of it from him today.
Okay. So the time that this plan was put together was then as a 1. We did not know.
We did not know
of
that.
So, okay, so that explains why it wasn't an urgent earlier.
Right, we
Okay.
didn't know at that time that it wasn't gonna be discontinued.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Any other questions? Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Vic.
Next up is Council on Aging.
How are you?
Good evening, we're well. Nice to see you. Both.
Hello.
So, to refresh with you, on the Council of Aging, you have a few things to go over. What I would like to do is I'd like to go through the first item, describe what you might know that's not in the book that would help us in our process. We'll ask to see if any councils have any questions, and if they do, we'll ask them, and then we'll move on to the next item and just go right down the list.
Okay.
So we're gonna start with the HVAC unit that needs replacing.
Right. We've had this on our agenda or on our radar for quite a few years. The last 2 years in particular, we started to notice a lot of soot and air quality issues. That particular unit feeds the first floor rear part of the building. So that's the recreation office, some of the nutrition area, and the hallway area. But we did notice on at least 2 occasions when it was high humidity outside that the walls of the recreation room itself, one particular event was literally covered with soot. And we had major concerns about the air quality. It appeared to be the high humidity was drawing in and keeping the dust that was in the air on the room. It was not mold. But we've noticed this around the vents itself in that area. They turn black cosmetically, if for no other reason. And of course, you can imagine the humidity in that room.
So the contractor that you called in said that the current unit could not be modified or corrected or upgraded?
That's correct. It's 20 years old. And I believe, I don't know the actual name of the part, but it would have had a Humitrol. Am I correct?
The new one.
Humitrol.
The new one.
Yeah. They felt that the current one was actually too big for the area that it is supposed to, work on.
So the new unit's gonna be resized for the
That's correct.
application?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, 20 years old is quite a while. Council
Yeah.
Kirby.
Thank you. Last time we had to work on the roof, we had to put up a fence in order to work on the roof.
Right.
Do we have to do that again?
Still there.
It's still there.
Oh, it's still there.
It's a permanent fixture. And so I'm happy to say no.
We don't have to put up a new one.
Right. The last episode with the roof, they used cranes, and they did, a nice job with that. And by the way, just because you mentioned the roof,
No leaks?
no leaks.
Even with the snow? That's
I'm happy to
remarkable.
report.
Yeah,
That's remarkable.
knock on wood.
You wouldn't believe what we've been through with this roof.
Really, really, we were very pleased. It was one of our major concerns, so things are going well.
I've been up there. Any other councilors? Any other questions, Councilor Baker?
The projected cost is the good number, a little under 11,000?
We believe so. We got this quote a couple of years ago. I believe it was about 2 years ago when we started to have the problems. And so it might vary a little, but I think it's pretty true to cost.
Thank you.
Well, let's go on to the furnace. That looks like an estimate amount.
Again, the furnace has been working fine. It's 30 years old to our best estimate, and the most recent assessment of its function, it was in the high 80 percentile of efficiency. So throughout this winter, it hasn't had a hiccup. Now, please, I hope I don't jinx myself, but
How'd you come up with $20,000?
that was a quote that was given to us by not SS Corp. What was the heavens?
Mercury?
Mercury.
And that was this year?
No, a couple of years ago.
Other questions? Councilor Cook?
I just had one. You said that the efficiency rating was, first, thanks for coming in.
Oh, you're welcome.
But also, on the 80% efficiency, was that a recent?
No, prior to our current contract, we had Mercury Mechanical, and at that time, we were asked to have an efficiency
Right.
rating. So I'm going to say that was about 3 years ago.
About 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. And did they say at that time, I know like on a residential, you get up into the high 80s, that's usually pretty good.
They did, they said it was excellent.
So it was, okay. All right. So it's about a 3-year-old
Yeah.
thing at that point.
We have not been asked to have, or they don't offer it that I'm aware of, and we haven't been asked to do it since then. So, to the best of my knowledge, our bills are all within reasonable, slight increases, nothing major. We haven't noticed any significant change.
Okay, as a follow-up. Thank you. Are you having the regular annual maintenance done on the furnace? And which company is doing that? Is that Mercury?
No, we have SS Corp now.
That's what, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Churchill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilor Cook, the president asked a question.
Excuse me.
Do you have a service contract for the maintenance? Or do you pay as you go? Is it a service contract? Is it in your budget? Is there a service contract?
It's a
in your
service contract. I believe it's a citywide service contract now.
Okay. When they remodeled the old fire station, this is when the burner went in?
Yes.
Okay. Did they make any recommendations to service contract as to what they thought? 30 years is a long time on a burner. Did they give you any idea as to what the expectations would be down the road, and how long that they didn't see any foreseeable problems with the burner? The service
No,
people?
and we keep getting a clean bill of health, and as I mentioned, no one has mentioned that we should be, planning, or we should be aware of the fact that, that we should be replacing it. It was raised by the mayor when, I believe, the rec department, forestry, Parks and Forestry boiler went down in an emergent situation, perhaps a year or two ago, and the mayor raised a concern about us making sure that we had this on our radar.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the automatic hand dryers.
I'll have Darlene talk about that. She and I have, over the course of the last couple of years in particular, been looking at how to improve the functional aspects of some of the older equipment we have. Some of our bathroom facilities have hand pumps where you literally have to have good power or good strength in your hand to be able to push the pump down to initiate the water flow. And then, of course, we're using a lot of paper towels. And we're noticing that many places now are upgrading their equipment so that they have the automatics. So we wanted to put that on the radar as something for our wish list.
So the issue here is that currently the bathrooms are not wired for the electrical connections for the automatic soap dispenser or the hairdryer.
Right.
So there's a major wiring issue
Yes.
to both bathrooms from the electrical panel in order to accommodate the new machinery.
Yeah.
Right.
because $12,000 on the surface of it looks like very expensive hand dryers.
Right.
Right.
It would be a nice amenity to offer the seniors, you know, and if at all possible. If in the real world, the money was available.
Yep. Any questions? No? An acoustical retrofit.
I mentioned to the mayor and Gary that, Mr. Aratian, that throughout the year, we're always looking at how we can improve the facility, the senior center. And many times we use grant money for some of these expenditures. Each year around this time of the year, Darlene and I start to look at what surplus funds we may have left at the end of the year and how best to spend it. And this was one. The Executive Office of Elder Affairs sent down a memo commenting that many of the new senior centers and many of the senior centers, as they're receiving upgrades, are installing a Wi-Fi type system for individuals with hearing aids. Apparently the new hearing aids are also fitted so that they don't have to, there's nothing mechanical that a person has to do. It just automatically allows them to improve their hearing when they're in the center. Right now, for those of you that are not familiar, we use hand boxes. So it's a portable device where if someone has a hearing aid and they're listening to a speaker, that has to be attached to the microphone, and that enhances their hearing. So this is just an enhancement of that, what we currently have. We are looking at possibly expending grant funds at the end of the year if they're available.
And so far, you don't know what this is going to cost?
In the spring, we had plans initially mid-January for someone to come in and measure the senior center and to give us some more specific information. We decided to delay that until closer to the springtime when it made more sense.
So in order for this new wireless system to work, the individuals coming into the senior center would have to own a Wi-Fi capable
That's
hearing
correct.
aid. If they did not have a Wi-Fi capable hearing aid, the system wouldn't do them any good.
They would then use the hand models that we have. We would have both.
Got it.
We probably have about 8 handheld models, which is comfortably accommodated those seniors.
And so you're using those for your speakers in your programs, but are you also using it in your meetings with individuals?
It's posted that if anyone would like the equipment, it's merely asking us for it.
Yep. Councilor Kirby.
Thank you. Actually, I deal with this a little bit in school.
Oh, do you?
In terms of FM systems and
Good.
students that I would have that would have a hearing issue or an auditory processing issue, they go through and one team per floor in my building, and that happens to be the team that I'm on, has the FM system. So that the speaker, being the teacher in this case, their voice would be amplified, and we just have a large speaker. But as we go on to high school, because the kids can be spread out throughout the building, they go back into the individual carry around a box method.
Okay.
So I like when I hear that, if a building can be Wi-Fi and they have their own hearing aid, in that it would just automatically pick up, but there wouldn't be anything to carry around. So I see this as incredibly important for you as you move forward to different programs. And of course, that means that the individuals coming in have to have the right type of hearing aids, but that
Right,
if
and
this all blends together, this could be really beneficial.
I believe so.
And certainly, I see this as being beneficial in our business in terms of the teaching as well, with kids coming in with either hearing impairment or auditory processing problems, with them being
And
able
it
to hear.
sounds like you may also be a resource for us.
Yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah.
exploring virgin territory, trying to figure out what is best bang for our buck, if you will. And
But
this
I-
may
but I
very
like it.
well be one.
But I like what I'm hearing in that it's all self-contained. And rather than having somebody carry it around, and certainly the kids in high school, they're like, they don't wanna be carrying around an extra box.
Right.
Or putting it on their desk so that they can hear the teacher better, so, you know.
We also want to make sure that everyone is capable of providing the equipment when they're asked, and that becomes, somewhat of a concern, because Darlene and I both know where the equipment is and how to use it, but then again, we're not always there.
Sure. More applicable.
So this sounds like a more sophisticated system that I'm familiar with. I'm familiar with the Bluetooth system, where people can have a hearing aid, and they'll talk to their car, or it'll listen, can hear their car, or their iPad, or Apple phone. This is more of a broadband.
This is even more than what I've heard, because I've only had kids where the teacher has a microphone, and then there's a speaker in the room, just to amplify for everyone. So that's what we have currently, but I like the idea that if there's a speaker, that there would still have to be a microphone, I assume, for the presenter.
Yes.
And then, but everyone's own hearing aids would be able to pick it up. And then there wouldn't be any stigma of someone carrying around materials that, you need extra, the middle school and high school, anything that makes them look different, they're gonna reject, so.
Got it.
Good reason.
Any questions? Okay, we can move on to the carpeting.
Well, we have that as a priority 3, because that's the second phase of an overall project. In previous years, you've approved the carpeting to be replaced upstairs. We did the majority of the main common room upstairs with carpet tiles, which obviously are the state of the art. So if someone spills or damages, just replacing a simple tile is much more efficient than ripping up the carpeting. The price, the cost, the $9,989 is the second phase, which is the office rooms, the office space, our conference room space. And yeah, and that's where we're running into a little bit more problems, trying to figure out how to get that done. Heavy file cabinets, a lot of work to unload, empty, move, and we just don't have the manpower and the time right now. So it's on our radar, hopefully to get done, but.
Councilor Churchill.
Looking at your last 2 items, Madeline,
Yes, sir.
why aren't they in the budget as a line item? Do you have maintenance of equipment? It seems to me these things, although a little bit of money, they should be part of your budget process.
What,
mean-
I'm sorry, what 2 items?
Typically, items in capital improvement plans are over $10,000.
Yes,
So what Councilor Churchill is saying is that
okay.
these both seem to be underneath that $10,000 limit. An alternative, rather than asking for council approval, would be to throw it in your budget and get it passed as your
Sure.
budget.
The original, replacing the refrigerator is phase 3 of an original bundled project that we originally put together a cost that would have been to replace all of the utilities in the kitchen, the stove, the refrigerator, the freezer,
Didn't we
the
just buy a
dishwasher,
Incinerator.
and the incinerator. As those items have needed to be replaced, that money has trickled down out of that original amount. So I don't know if I explained that correctly, but the original amount was $25,000.
Right.
We've slowly replaced some of those items, so that now that we're down to this last expenditure.
What we're telling you is that we would like to see this in your annual budget in 2018 for 2019,
Perfect.
rather than asking us for it as a
Okay.
capital improvement plan.
Good.
So we just bought you a dishwasher, is that correct? Is that now installed?
It will be installed Friday.
Friday, so we can see
We're
it
happy.
at the Deanno Players Super Event.
That's correct.
Wonderful.
That was our goal,
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
barring any more snowstorms.
Councilor Cook, you have a
Thank you.
question?
No, I just want to go back on the carpeting. So the original, when this first appeared in the capital improvements, if I remember correctly, the price tag of that was greater than $20,000.
Yes, it was.
Right, and so that money was used, so this was just, well, I don't remember if it was a phased project at that time or not, but if it had all been done at that time, then it would have made more sense.
That's
than
correct.
A total capital, but we only had enough money to do part of it.
Right.
At that time, so we didn't appropriate the full 25,000 for it. So this was left of that
That's correct.
original project. Okay, so that would explain why it would be in this, as
Right,
opposed
we're
to being
just nipping
initially in the
away
budget.
at the projects that we can do physically and those that are needed more urgently.
Right, okay.
Any other questions?
Just as a follow-up,
Yes, sir.
now I understand why it's in here, but
Okay.
it would seem to me that, and I'm just going back past memory, you must have maintenance of equipment, maintenance of buildings accounts.
We do. We do.
And even though the money that was originally designated for the carpet is gone, I would have reintroduced it as part of a budget item.
I agree.
That's,
Because it's.
that's fine. We'll be
it's-
happy to do that.
It's something that, and if the mayor feels that that's not important, it won't come down to the council. But if something happens, it's gonna end up in here anyways. But at least you get a primary shot at what you're trying to do on a year-to-year basis. It just seems to me that some of the things that I've noticed come here that I would put in a budget. Because it isn't something that the priority isn't very high, but it's something you need to do.
Right.
And if you need to do it, it should be part of your internal workings in your budget. That's my opinion. And that's the reason I express this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Council Thibodeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madeline, what's the surface that's underneath the existing carpeting in the rooms that you want to replace the carpeting?
It's wood.
So there are wooden floors under
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
What kind of shape were the wooden floors in?
I don't remember. Do you, Darlene?
I don't, no, the carpeting's,
No.
Plywood over.
came when they did the second renovation
Yeah.
on the senior center, so, I
think
don't
I ever
remember at
saw
all
it.
what the flooring looked like. It's not I don't believe it's a hardwood floor, I think it's
Yeah.
just probably
Planks of wood.
planks, yeah.
Yeah, I know when they were stripping it up to replace it, that was mentioned to us, that it was a wood floor underneath. But to be honest with you, Walter, I'm sorry, I don't remember what condition it was in.
I suspect we do have an answer, Council Churchill.
Yeah, you may.
Is the original floor? Did the rug go
I
up?
would venture to say yes.
Well, I would doubt if they put the original floor off those planks, they probably put plywood on top of the planks.
Okay.
Because the wood there was planks. When they had horse and buggies and everything was cut, some of it was replaced with concrete, but in the back, it's still planks. I'm guessing, and I'm only guessing, they would have put plywood over before they put the rug down.
I would think so.
But if it's the
Definitely
original
some kind of
planks-
subfloor.
That's old.
But then the floor, if they didn't put plywood down, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
then it would follow the planks. If
Yes, it
if the
would.
planks
You
would
would
warm.
have, it would have waved, yes.
Yeah.
I don't think any
So
carpet
they must have
installer
put
would
the
lay
plywood
down
down.
carpeting on top of planks
No.
without putting down a subfloor.
They would have had to glue it.
So they could have poured down, forget what they call it. It's like a concrete, but it's more fluid.
And then they
more
level it.
liquid, and it levels it off.
Levelizer.
Yeah. So there are a few things they could use. What I was getting to, Mr. Chairman, was that if, in fact, there was an existing hard surface floor under there, such as a linoleum or something like that, that it might be possible to remove the old carpeting, if it isn't glued to the floor, if it's carpeting with padding underneath it, which probably isn't glued to the floor. It's usually on, the installation is on there with stripping around the room. And then. Tack strip, or tackless as they call it. But my thought is that perhaps if you took that out of there and brought in area rugs, and then you could rearrange furniture as you needed to rearrange furniture, would be less labor intensive, not because of the weight of the files and things of that nature that you may want to move around, just that you could put casters under them and move them in different locations if it became necessary to do that, which is a lot more difficult on carpeting to do so. And if you
Well,
were going to do a
I think,
replacement
Council,
anyway.
where our current situation is, we think that she should be budgeting the carpeting replacement, that it doesn't warrant a capital improvement project.
So does that mean we can't talk about it?
No, we can talk about it.
Okay,
no,
because that's, all I was doing was trying to find out what the existing flooring was under the carpeting and suggesting an alternative that might be even cheaper.
Even cheaper, right. That was my point. I was trying to get to that point.
Okay.
Council Blaze, did you have a comment?
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're all set then. Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thanks, guys.
We're on to voting machines. Yeah.
29.
We're way ahead of time. We are. Health. Health. There's only three items, I think it is.
I'm all set. No, thank you. That's very kind.
I left it going.
Good evening.
Election.
Well, we happen to be in a mode this evening where most of the people who have come in front of the committee only have one item. So we sped through departments rather quickly tonight. But fortunately, I'm comfortable with what you're about to say.
And you, yes, you should be.
I'm very comfortable with what you're about to say.
We want to replace the tabulators. The state certified 2 different machines. We had our demonstrations. The time frame was a little, we wasn't sure what we were gonna do. And we started to have a little bit of an issue. I mean, our machines are 19 years, maybe 20 years old. And they've got some wear and tear on them. Our concern was when we replaced them, we don't want to do it for the presidential. And we don't want to use the machines we have now for the presidential. So this is the year it needs to be done for the next election.
So in the process of the state certifying 2 machines, your commissioners investigated the 2 companies to see what communities had used them?
Yes, we've actually been to an election to watch Mansfield use one of the machines.
And each company came to Attleboro and put on a demonstration.
Put on a demonstration for myself, the commissioners, a couple of poll workers, a counselor.
There was a counselor there.
And the demonstrations were pretty good, actually. They went across the whole state doing it.
And part of what the commissions are looking at is how they can predict, or what they predict, the public might react to the new machines. Of
Yes,
what they're
because they're
used
very,
to.
very similar, but they're not identical.
The 2 machines are similar, but not similar to the machines we're currently.
Oh, not even close.
Yeah.
No, not even close.
So what are the major differences between the machines
Well,
that
this
we're
will-
likely to see versus the machines we currently have?
Well, this will have a screen on it, and when you put the ballot in, it actually reads it. I think it might come back out and then go back in, and then you're supposed to wait, and there's gonna be a little note there that says that your ballot has been counted. So the voter's gonna have to have a little bit of retraining, because we don't want them to leave the ballot box until they see that. One of the machines has a very small screen, and one of the machines has a higher screen. That's the biggest change, it's all electronic now. It's all, and it's gonna take some serious training for the poll workers and ourselves to figure this out and get it going. But that comes with the package, so that shouldn't be a problem. There'll be a new ballot box, and one of the 2 ballot boxes only has 2
Storage bins.
bins, where we're used to 3, and we really kind of wanted to keep it with the 3. The write-ins, the side there. One of them, the write-ins goes in with the rest of the ballots. And then it's also end of the night, they run the reports. And we have that now, so it'll be similar, but it'll be different. So we'll have to see just what it is we'll be doing.
So with the new voting machines, no matter which company ultimately you go with, and have you selected one to go with versus?
We know what we want, but we're gonna start the bid process and do it the whole, yeah, we know what we want.
And the end result's gonna be the same. At the end of the voting period, when the state says you gotta shut your machines down, you press a button and it does a recap of all the people and all the votes that they got. And it's that tape that becomes the evidence of the poll results.
The tape, right, the tape is, so we'll still be having, hanging tapes, the tape will come, but then there's a card that we put into the, laptop, what it's, right now, we put it in the AccuVote machine that feeds the laptop that gives us the report. I'm not sure what this one's gonna do, to be honest with you. I'm not sure.
So there'll still be no electronic transmission from the polls to
No.
the central.
We can't do that because there's so many switchboards, they don't have the phones. We've tried that in the past. It just doesn't work.
So even though we're getting brand-new
Yes.
voting machines, we'll
Yes.
still be in the Stone Age
Yes.
when it comes to reporting the
We're
results.
still gonna have a poll worker bring it back to City Hall, yes.
Right, got it. This capital improvement book says the price is to be determined.
Right,
Well,
'cause
we already know pretty much what the voting machines are going to cost.
right, that, when we put this in, we were still getting the quotes. So we were still working on it. So we did get the quotes, but now we have to go for bid, so I'm not sure that might change. I'm not sure.
So the 13 machines are approximately how many dollars a piece?
Oh, a piece?
Well, how much?
It comes to about $83,000.
That's what I wanted to know.
That's what it is.
We won't
Like
hold
pulling
you to,
teeth.
we won't hold you to that.
Thank you.
Give or take a few dollars.
Yeah, it's a
Councilor
lot of money in my world.
Councilor Cook has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mary Ann, thank you for coming in and for all your work on this. You mentioned, I don't have to go for bid on these, but do you know if any of the companies that you've been looking at or that provide this type of equipment are on the state bid list?
They're not.
They're not, okay.
And I was told by the company that we're interested in going to that 5-8 years ago, when they tried to get on the state bid list, they were told election equipment doesn't go on the state bid list.
But the machines themselves are certified by
By
the
the,
state.
we can't get
Yeah,
anything
that-
but these, either
yeah, that
one of
seems
these
kind
two
of-
machines, yeah.
It seems kind of strange.
Seems kind of odd that they
Yeah.
wouldn't put them on a bid list.
Well, I'm only going by what they said. I didn't call the state to see, because if they're not on it, they're not on there, I know that.
Yeah, I got it. Councilor Brady, do you have a
Thank you.
question?
Just very quick, so we have 13 existing, there's no way to replace some and not all, or do it? at
No,
the
because
state?
they're
It has
two
to be-
completely
okay.
different.
I figured as much, but I
Yeah,
thought I'd make sure.
yeah.
Any other, Councilor Churchill?
Just for my own understanding, when a memory card fails, which it says that some are failing, what do you do?
Well, what happened was, when it came in to be put into the AccuVote machine to feed to get the report, I guess the little edging was up, and they couldn't get it to read, so we called LHS, and they talked them through it, and they got the report to run. The commissioners did that. I'm not in that room, so I don't know what actually happened.
Thank you.
So we were able to
So the
get it
new
done.
machines, Counselor, at the end of the voting night, there's a key code on the press. It's a touchscreen pad, and the commissioner enters the special code, and the machine automatically spits out, just like a cash register tape, all of the results of the entire election on that machine.
And
Yeah.
and if there was a really bad failure, we got the tape. The
And
tape
voting
is,
machines
the
have-
tape mirrors the memory card.
Okay.
And the new voting machines have batteries built into them to maintain the power if the power goes out.
So as a follow-up, if the card fails, the tape doesn't.
We've got both, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Not that I was concerned.
Any other questions? That's it.
Almost painless.
I think we will take looks like we're gonna need about a 15 to
Thank you.
30-minute recess.
Mary Ann.
For, the health department show.
Can I show up for 7:15?
Yeah. I have not called them because I've been here working. So let's take a 5-minute recess and we'll call them and see if we can get them down here. All in favor?
Aye.
Declare a 5-minute recess.
Not mine. I'm just saying.
Let's see if I can find this number.
Do you have the page that Health's on?
Health is on page 38.
38.
My operation got postponed until April.
Again?
Gotta make it
Okay.
safe for the kids.
Wasn't it?
Something or her.
Okay.
Been saying that right along? They're not gonna agree to it. All it does is reaffirm my doubts.
I'd like to reconvene the capital improvement city development meeting. Back to order at 6:29. One of our longest 5-minute recesses.
No, not one of our longest 5 minutes.
One of our typical
Capital
5-minute
Improvement
recess.
Committee's longest 5-minute recess. Welcome, Doctor. Welcome, Mr. Perry.
Hello.
We have we've had a breakneck speed tonight. We've had several departments only had one issue, and so we kind of cut through them rather quickly.
Trying to get our third.
That's okay, we can go.
We can go with it.
So you just have 2 items regarding the recycling center and a vehicle. So we're pretty much ready to go.
I think our first item was the 3 items before you, I think, have been on the docket, so to speak, without a better word, I guess, for a few years. I think these items, were presented to you, some maybe at least a few years ago, a few years before I became your health agent, so at least a few fiscal years back. The paint crushing machine is an item that is still, well, I guess we'll know in spring when we go to use it again, but it's really has been on its last legs now. The folks over at DPW have been able to patchwork it, so to speak. So in all fairness to you folks, it is still, I guess, viable, so to speak, but it could go at any time.
And what's the consequences of that, Alan? If the paint bucket machine, crushing machine fails, what's your alternative?
Well, there definitely would be a tremendous backup. Some alternatives would be that we could possibly deal in a short term with maybe a recycling company or another type of company that could put that maybe on pallets, or they could come in and dump each one individually or take it, probably at a fairly good expense. I wouldn't be able to give you that exact expense. Unfortunately, Cheryl's not here, who deals with it all the time. But we would definitely be looking at a tremendous backup based on our past practices. And there would be the possibility that there would be an expense to get rid of it if we didn't have it. We get rid of it anyway, it's just that it's the ease of convenience that we are crushing those cans and sending it out in bulk, in large drums.
Yeah. So my guess is that the volume of cans to be crushed is increasing.
I can't answer that honestly. It's certainly not decreasing. Maybe Cheryl might be able to answer that question for you, whether it's been increasing.
And this is a machine that crushes the cans after the paint has been emptied out of the can.
No.
No, that's the purpose. It will take the can, crush it, and it will crush it right into larger containers.
So that the paint comes out during the crushing.
And then the can is disposed of separately, sorted through the solid waste stream. cans, we
I see.
stockpile it.
Cheryl, I apologize. We've been running at breakneck speed tonight, lightning fast. And it's because we had several departments that had just one issue in front of the council. So we went through them and we got all of our questions answered, and we wound up ahead of schedule, so I apologize.
So, Council Member Conti wants to know if that paint crushing machine is not replaced and it fails, what are the consequences? Are we not going to collect?
We'd be paying a lot more for paint, to dispose of paint, basically, because we get a big break by crushing it, paying by the drum. It's a lot cheaper than just paying by the gallon, so almost double the money.
And so the money is that you put the paint can, the partially full paint can, into this machine, it crushes it, the liquid comes out of the can, goes
Falls
into a
under a
drum,
drum.
and then you can take a 55-gallon drum to be recycled rather than half-empty cans.
Yes.
Okay, and then the cans themselves get recycled
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
And do you think the volume of the crushing of the cans has increased?
Well, over 5,000 1-gallon cans of paint we did last year.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. And this machine is 16 years old,
Yes.
and it's working, but you're afraid it's not going to continue working.
Yeah, we had to repair it several times last year, off and on again. It was you know, luckily in the end, it was working. But I called the company where we bought it, T-Mark, and they told me that the parts for this are obsolete. They're not even making them anymore for this. So luckily, the mechanic at DPW has been fixing it for us, but he keeps telling me, you know, I don't know if we'll be able to fix it again if it breaks down.
Council Churchill.
Mr. President, Chairman, you said 5,000 gallon cans?
Yeah, over 5,000
Okay,
gallons.
it equates to how much money? As a 55-gallon drum, it equates to how
I
much?
budget about $10,000 a year for paint.
So if it doubled, we're almost paying for the machine if we had to use the one-gallon cans. Okay, thank you.
We had one failure, we thought that was the end of the machine, but somehow they, so we thought we were done with this machine, unfixable, and somehow Cheryl and mechanic got it working again.
Council Denley.
So, I'm just looking at this one and the one beneath it, saying that the financing's from the user rate, from the solid waste user rate system. Do you know, and if you don't know, can you just email Mr. Conti, for every X amount of expenditure, the user rate is increased by a penny or 10 pennies, so that we can keep that in mind when wanting to finance different things, we can know how this will affect the user rate.
Yeah, I'll email them.
Okay.
I think it's almost 14,000 users, so it's
For the
almost
man.
$1 a user it would come out to
Okay.
for this. But I think the price did go down a little bit for this, because I keep in contact with T-Mark throughout the year, last year, just to keep an idea what the price was, and she actually told me it went down like $1,500 at one point, so, and it still is a little bit down, but it still would probably be close to $1 per resident.
And that would just be a one-time
One-time.
hit on the user rate. Okay, cool, thank you.
Council Frika.
That's a good point. I guess my question was just in my head and it just fell out. So we have, would it be appropriate to change this priority on this one as well?
Yeah.
I think so.
Because where the parts are obsolete and we're gambling every time we try to fix it, I think it would probably be appropriate to move it up.
All the way up to urgent.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, we were sweating it out there for that failure several months ago. And this is a one-time additional 75 cents to $1. It's not every year. Once every 10 years.
Well, the community really supports the paint recycling program. I mean, it's a very, very popular program.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think that any of our constituents would have an issue with us replacing the paint can crushing can for $14,000, where it would cost you $28,000 if you didn't have the paint crushing can. I mean, that's a rather simple issue.
That'd be great, thank you. Much appreciated. And then do you want to do the second one, vehicle?
The vehicle, we've been down a vehicle for, I think, almost 3 years now. We haven't raised enough money in our revolving account to actually purchase it yet. So we're hoping next fiscal year to be able to get another vehicle. We're sharing vehicles
Within the department?
within the department, yeah. But we did lose one of our vehicles.
Was it
The Sonoma, yeah, GMC Sonoma.
Council Blair, you have a question?
You said, excuse me, you used money out of the fees?
Solid waste user rate would pay for the truck?
No, you said that yeah, boy, I lost it.
No, you're right.
No, you put money aside or to be paid this truck out of, that you're building
We
up?
had done that in the past.
Oh, you have done it in the past?
Yeah, in the past I did, but
I was just gonna ask you, how close does this fund get to you have nothing put aside?
So if I may, again, this is something I think came before you folks again a few years prior to.
Revolving fund, you said you had a revolving fund?
But I actually think
Several.
I actually do think it, and I could be wrong, but I think this would be out of city funds, I think is the request for this. This would not be a vehicle just for the solid waste portion of our budget. This would be an all-around vehicle that could be used by all of the health department staff. And I think a few years ago, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Cheryl, because I wasn't here, but I think city council had approved a vehicle for the health department. At that time, they tried to budget through the solid waste, but we dealt with trying to keep the user rate the same and we never, vehicle was never purchased. But I think technically it was put before you, through city funds, not through the solid waste.
Okay.
And that's the way it stands, I believe, now, in the way it was presented to you in this package.
I know you've done a great job, and before you, Cheryl has, with picking up trash and keeping things neat around the city, so it's a vehicle that, and I don't want you out there picking refrigerators up.
Also Denley.
Yeah, none of you.
So, how many employees does the health department have?
Not including Dr. Quinn.
Sure.
Okay. There would be myself, Chuck Flanagan, Cheryl
Jackie.
Perry, Cheryl Castro, Jackie O'Brien, Ryan Weeman, and then we have June Fleshman. and
Social
then-
worker.
Social worker, and then we have some seasonal help.
And then how many non-heavy duty vehicles do you have?
We have a van.
Two.
So
Jackie.
that's 8 employees sharing 2 vehicles. So I would think this would be more than
Well,
reasonable.
we have a total of, I'm sorry, we have a total of.
Jeep.
4 vehicles.
Okay.
Two pickups, 1 Jeep, and
In the van.
Okay. So you need this to continue operating.
yeah.
It's a pickup, right?
I think particularly a pickup would be the
Yeah.
most useful all-around vehicle.
Because any of the full-time staff can be called out, can you pick up something roadside, and that's why a pickup comes in handy. Could be Chuck on his way to some animal inspection or something of that nature.
And the city benefits by that because we don't have mattresses out for months and months and months. I can just call Cheryl and she'll come pick up a mattress.
Throw it in my back,
It's not just mattresses, I mean,
Yeah.
dead deer have to be picked up as well, and other things. that-
We don't.
That's animal control.
That's animal control.
Yes.
So it's, Councilor Churchill has a question.
Sir, how many inspections are you doing annually?
It depends, quite a few. It depends on what type of inspection from, we.
Just give me the Reader's Digest version of an aggregate. In other words, I'm reflecting that this truck could be used for that if it had to be.
Yes.
Okay.
When you combine food and housing and septic and trash, thousands.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
There's many times when we ask, all right, who's out, who's doing what in the department? And give them a call, see if they can pick something up because they're in the area where there's a call-in, trash dump.
So,
illegally.
follow-up, sir?
Yes.
So, obviously, another vehicle that could be used would increase the probability of doing an inspection in a timely manner. Some are emergencies, I'm sure. Some are. You must get a call and say, hey, you gotta come look at this.
They are to the
That's
person
right.
complaining. You know,
Yeah.
They don't like that on their property.
Quite frankly, housing would fall into that category. We
Right.
deal with a lot of emergencies. And next, we come food-related issues.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? We can go on to the recycling center upgrade.
That's one of the last projects for the recycling center is now we need to pave the road. We haven't done that yet. I think the quote that I got last was like over $60,000 for that. We're not ready this fiscal year to do that, but it is in the future plans to be able to pave the turnaround road where residents drive into. Every year, we're always bringing in stone dust, in the spring to level it off, a couple of times throughout the season. But, that's pretty much, at this point, the final phase for that.
This is to pave from the Pond Street entrance all the way down.
Well, that's already paved.
That's not to repave that section. It's only to pave an additional section at the end.
Yes, just the turnaround, not the compost center side at all, but just the recycling center side,
Got it, where the buildings are.
yes.
Council Perica.
Just a couple of quick questions. Did you get an independent quote for that paving?
Ron Dubuque did it
Okay.
according to who we have on
Excellent.
contract.
All right, great, thank you. That's what I wanted, I just wanted to make sure that we were going through the appropriate. Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, personally, I think you're gonna outgrow that center one day, but certainly getting that area paved, that's gonna stay there regardless. I mean, no matter what happens in the future, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, I believe your recycling, unless they decide that that needs to be a sludge dump, then there's a whole nother problem that's gonna take place. And as you know, I worked on a white paper earlier this year. We had a private meeting and we went through the white paper, and I expect that there's been some progress in that regard since when I wrote that paper, but you can let me know later how that's progressing. I'd appreciate it. Any other councilors, questions for the health department? That's it then. Thank you.
Thank you.
I make a
Thanks for
motion,
coming in early.
to adjourn the capital improvements. Second.
Peter,
Thank you. Motion's in order. All in favor?
Aye.
I declare the capital improvements.
you're right on, Jim did get a truck once.
Adjourned.
Through that.
6:42.
No, you're not on the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Your memory serves you, he did get a truck years.
See you tomorrow, sir.
Yes, you have a nice day, Mr. Churchill.